Hello Internet, it is me, V-Man. I apologize if my voice sounds weird, I have been very sick all week. But more importantly than that, I have some very bad news to deliver to you. Now, the last year has not exactly been kind to the Internet, starting with the music industry closing down popular YouTube to MP3 websites, and then the loss of net neutrality in the United States, more recently the passing of Article 13 in the European Union, and somewhere in the middle of that, video game companies cracking down on emulator websites. Now that's all pretty grim, but yesterday, it got even worse. So late last night, I was sitting at my desk enjoying some Mr. Noodle brand ramen and watching some quality Japanese animation on the good old Crunchyroll, when I received some very troubling news. In the last few days, Electronic Arts has been putting pressure on the legal department of Lucasfilm, or, well, more accurately, Disney, to swiftly and decisively bring the Mickey Mouse branded hammer of legal justice crashing down onto a new target. And that new target is none other than the Star Wars fan game. What I remember about the rise of Electronic Arts is how quiet it was. During the waning hours of last night, the Disney legal department was discreetly transferred to the forums of IndieDB. It was a silent trip. They all knew what was about to happen, what they were about to do. Did they have any doubts, any private, treacherous thoughts? Perhaps. But no one said a word. Not as they browsed the mod pages, not when the cease and desists came down, and not when they removed every good game. Not a word. Now, according to my source, it does seem that the main targets for this crackdown are of course going to be the most popular Star Wars fan projects, stuff like Republic Commando Remaster and the Clone Wars Adventures emulator, along with a overall purging of fan games listed on the IndieDB website. The only piece of good news seems that, for the most part, as of right now, Star Wars Battlefront 2 mods should be unaffected. I did see one person comment in a panic that a New Frontier mod, which I know has become very popular, especially amongst Battlefront 2 YouTubers like Cryo, Datch, and Savage Gamer Plays, that mod wasn't downloading. I actually tested that this morning, and I was in fact able to download it. So maybe that guy was just having internet problems, and it was a coincidence. But it does seem that everything there is okay. Now, as for me personally, the one Star Wars fan project that I have a lot of love for and am super invested in is the game The Galactic Civil War by Lost in Days Studios. I've said it many times, and I will continue to say it. The game is fantastic for a fan game. I really do love the project. I've been waiting in anticipation for basically the whole year for them to release the 0.4 update, which has been very much anticipated. It's a massive update, adding all kinds of new stuff. I'm sure several of you have probably seen Cryo's video where he actually got to basically beta test the multiplayer functionality that was being implemented into the game. That video by Cryo is no longer up. He took it down, and I believe earlier today he released a statement explaining why. And of course it has to do with this controversy with EA really cracking down on these fan games. Now, many of you may have also noticed today, I know one person left me a comment about it, that the IndieDB page for the Galactic Civil War no longer exists. It's gone. If you Google it or you use a direct link, it'll tell you the page cannot be found. It's unavailable. Now you might think, oh no, the game has been canceled, Disney has taken action, legal things are happening. I can tell you that is not actually the case as of right now. Now I would like to put a disclaimer. I am not an official part by any means of the team developing the game. I am only very loosely associated with them. But I can tell you from being on the Discord server, what they have decided to do, I think quite wisely, is the developers have preemptively taken their game down. They haven't deleted it, they've just made it not publicly available, so they don't get caught up in this mess. And they are now basically attempting to go through the official channels to get proper permission to make a Star Wars fan property. Very similar to what Star Wars Theory did to get the rights to make his Darth Vader fan film. So don't worry, the game is not completely gone. It's just going into a bit of a period of dormancy until things blow over. Unfortunately, this does mean that the 0.4 update next week will be postponed, and we'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Now, you might be wondering, why is Electronic Arts suddenly going after all the Star Wars fan games? I mean, a lot of these fan games have been on the internet for more than a year at this point, and it was totally fine. Well, besides the fact that it is their legal right to go after them whenever they see fit, if you would like a more elaborate answer with just a pinch of speculation, what I can say is this. Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA is about to receive a pretty large update, and so it's only natural that EA would want to remove any kind of competition they might face. Being the only company that develops Star Wars games, it's not like they have a lot of AAA competition, so they would want to go after the fan games. I am assuming the thought process is, if a player could get a really fun, enjoyable Star Wars experience from a free game on the internet, why would they bother buying a AAA Star Wars game? Now, that is a fair concern for them to have, but the counter to that point is, just make a good Star Wars game, EA! I mean, it can't be that hard. We do have a lot of them. We used to get a good Star Wars game almost every 2 years until you took over, and now in the last 5 years, we've gotten 2, and I mean, the first one was okay. It wasn't bad. I still played it for like 150 hours, but it wasn't really what I wanted. And the second game was just more of the same, with a slightly higher resolution coat of paint and more disappointment. Realistically speaking, there is no way that a fan game made by 5 university students with no budget just for fun should ever be able to compete with a AAA game. It's just not how it works. I mean, indie games can't even compete with AAA games most of the time, and they're actually made for profit on a budget. If Electronic Arts, one of the biggest video game publishers and developers out there, seriously feels that their exclusive license to one of the most profitable titles out there is threatened by free fan games, if they actually think that a free Star Wars fan game will actively take players away from their $1 million AAA Star Wars game, they need to stop and look at themselves and ask, what are they doing wrong? Because there is no other reason possible why that kind of scenario would ever happen. Now, all that being said, we are, of course, talking about Electronic Arts. So realistically, this could also all just be about corporate paranoia and greed. Now, always remember, Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA is a mediocre game. It probably leans slightly more to good than bad, but it's pretty mediocre. Star Wars Masters of Teräs Käsi is one of the worst Star Wars games ever made. But you didn't have to pay an extra $40 to play as Darth Vader in that one.